Eyewitness News is bringing you tomorrow's headlines today, and this morning we are shedding light on how chronic staffing shortages is impacting wildlife refuges across the state. Here with me to talk about the current strain on wildlife conservation efforts is Ronni Butts. She covers it all for our friends over at the News and Observer. Ronni, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. Let's talk about this story. Right now we're talking about what's behind the budget and staffing shortages at wildlife refuges. What is it?
Yes, the wildlife refuges are federally designated lands by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. These lands are designated for conservation and research and also maintaining endangered and at-risk species and migratory birds. Now, these wildlife refuges have been struggling with budget cuts and also staffing shortages for years now. And even more recently in 2025, when the federal government enacted DOGE cuts throughout federal agencies, we saw even more staffing loss. And so as staff have left and vacancies haven't been refilled, staff have been stretched thin to ensure that they are completing all of their duties.
So these shortages kind of stacking on top of each other. Look, state and national advocacy groups say there's now less than a dozen workers to manage more than 4,000 acres of forest. What kind of risks do wildlife and visitors face if there's not enough staff to do all the upkeep?
Yes, so the 400,000 acres are very vast, full of wetlands, marshes, and forests. Now, these staff are struggling to do the work that they are assigned to do, but with the help of volunteers, they've been able to, figure out all the work that they need to accomplish. These volunteers are often retirees, some are students, interns, and they'll come in and upkeep the educational value of these lands by planting educational panels. They'll also plant species that are native to the land and remove invasive species. This all helps these workers out. Because of all the work that they have to do, they have to triage to figure out what is most important.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about. How are they filling the gap if they're so under-resourced?
Well, that's part of the problem. Like I said, you have to figure out what is most crucial and what funding do you have at the time to accomplish the projects that you have set before you. I spoke to a retired wildlife refuge manager who told me that there was a project at Pocosin Lakes Wildlife Refuge that he managed that should have only taken a few years, but because of the inability to get consistent funding, that project went on for about 20 years.
No, it's good reporting, shining a light on it. Ronni Butts, thank you so much for coming in and talking about it. You can read more on this report on the News and Observer website or in Sunday's paper.